Welcome to Subscription Prescription, the podcast where you get the information you need to scale your subscription program. Hello and welcome to another dose of Subscription Prescription, the podcast where we help you figure out everything related to D2C subscriptions. I'm excited to be joined by today's guest, Coultre. She is the Retention and CRM Manager at SpaceGoods. And for those of you listening and watching at home, you may not know this, but this is the second time we've recorded this because the first time Riverside did not work out as well as it's supposed to. So B, I really thank you for coming on the show for a second time, for recording with us once again.
Nice. No worries. Thanks, Matt. It's good to be back. And always take the chance to have another conversation with you. So thanks for having me back on.
I love that. I appreciate that. And as we were talking kind of offline before recording, we're not going to try to recapture all of the magic from the first podcast because we think that taking a second go out of it actually will be even more special. So B, I would love for you to start by first just introducing yourself, a little bit more about you and your background, and then we'll talk about SpaceGoods.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have been working in the retention space for the last 8 years, and I have decided to specialize in subscription retention. The last role I had was in subscription retention as well, and this is my second role. So I'm really finding my niche here and really enjoying specializing in this space. I feel that someone that's a retention marketer, retention specialist with the CRM background, subscription is a really, really great space to play in. And one of the best spaces to sort of exercise, all the good stuff that we can do in retention and CRM. So happy to have found my niche. But prior to that, I come from, generalist marketing background, but I also have one of my first roles was in market research. And so, I come from sort of speaking to customers, interrogating customers and sort of coming at it from a real sort of curiosity mindset. So that's really helped me out as, we've become more data hungry and data reliant. Having a market research background, I feel has set me up really well for retention and for CRM. So that's a little bit.
I love that. And it's funny because I was reading a tweet yesterday that said, we need more marketers that talk to customers. And essentially saying, right, like marketers, we think that we know everything, we have it all figured out. But if we would just talk to customers, we would learn way more and be way more effective in our jobs.
Yeah, exactly. Just ask. It's kind of like, being too shy to stop and ask for directions, just ask. That helps a lot. But I've been at SpaceGoods for just over a year. And
Okay.
yes, so a little bit about SpaceGoods, I guess, to set us up. So SpaceGoods, most widely known for our hero product, which is rainbow dust. I guess that's what we're most famous for, and that's what we sell most of, which is an adaptogenic and mushroom blend. It comes in 6 flavors, but essentially a productivity and focus hacker. And we sell that, a lot of that on subscription. So we have an OTP and subscription buying option. We also sell a few other products. We have a sleep blend, we have a hydration blend, and we've also launched a matcha blend, but really focusing in on our hero product, Rainbow Dust. So it is a subscription focused business. We do about 80% of our business on subscription at the moment. Like I said, you do have the choice. So we use the toggle OTP versus subscription. And we've seen in our data that a subscriber is a lot more valuable. I know you hear this a lot. It's a common theme. But we see subscribers reorder, around 5x the rate as an OTP does. And so, for us as a business, we're really subscription focused and subscription first. So a big part of what we're trying to do is build our subscription offering to be, really easy to use, really inviting, really enticing. And that's part of the job of our product page is to highlight the benefits of being a subscriber, showcase that, and there's lots for us to test and learn around what we package into that subscription to make it valuable, to make it attractive, but also to allow for a good sort of fit with somebody that wants a subscription, tying the right person to the right buying option and the right product. We've found is actually probably the biggest lever in the business overall, sort of more so than rewards and discounts and that kind of thing. It's
Do you,
actually just
is
matching.
is that something as much as like, hey, you maybe you think you need a focused product, but maybe sleep is better for you, or is it more like, hey, here's the product you came for, but here's the amount you need based off of your consumption pattern? Like, can you unpack that statement more like the right product to the right person? Like, can you unpack that? What that means?
Yeah. Well, first of all, it's sort of matching your ads to the product. So ensuring the ad messages that are sort of creating the hooks and bringing prospects onto the site, that those messages match up with the product that they're landing on. So something that we have struggled with is sort of ads overpromising on sort of benefits that the product would never deliver on. And of course, that has a retention impact. So, that's one piece. But that aside, if you've landed on the right page for the right product, it's matching usage. Exactly. Are you sort of just curious and you're just wanting to try it once? Maybe a sample is better for you. Are you sort of set that you want to give the product a go for 1 month, but you absolutely do not want to subscribe? Or maybe, yeah, you determine that you just want to try one, or it's a gift that the buying option is right for you. And so that those that end up taking your subscription did want to be on a subscription, are expecting to be on a subscription, and are ready to be on a
Right.
subscription. So there's quite a few ways to sort of match the customer to the right product and buying option. And yes, quantity as well. We also sell 1 and 2 bag, up to 3 bag options. And if you kind of buy the wrong one, you end up overstocking, and that is a
Right.
churn risk again. And so there's lots of levels that we need to create that match. It's not as easy as it's said.
It hardly is. If it was that easy, then I probably wouldn't have this podcast.
Yeah, true.
But do you find that you get a lot of people that are new to Space Goods for the first time picking the subscription, or is it mostly returning customers? Because I'm always kind of curious by that breakdown of, do you try to just sell people to try it and then bring them back to subscribe, or do you try to sell subscription to somebody who's actually never even used the product yet? So I'm kind of curious how you see that breakdown in your business.
Yeah. Well, 80% of what we sell on subscriptions, and for the most part, that there is going to be new customers. We do have a fair bit of reactivation, but for the most part, that's new customers. So how we position it is as a starter kit. So that's
Yep.
very much aimed at someone new, and we've added products to our starter kit that are meant to give you the very best experience possible with your first cup or your first bag. And so we give you a whisk, we give you a mug, we give you a spoon so that you always get your dosage right. You get it nice and fluffy and velvety, and you've got a nice mug that keeps it really warm. So those gifts are there to entice you to take the subscription because you can see the value. You're on the page, you're evaluating the options. The subscription is there. There's lots of value.
Is the one time just a bag? It's not any of that stuff then?
Right.
Okay.
Right. It's more expensive and there's no free gifts with it.
Okay.
So that creates a challenge in itself because you're creating an environment where you sort of have to take the subscription. You'd be silly not to take it, but you never
Right.
plan to take it. So that opens up a little challenge for us. But I think for the most part, our strategy is make the subscription really attractive. That's where we focus. We build the value there. We want you to take the subscription. And, for the most part, the subscription does quite well at hanging on to those customers, and we can kind of mitigate and coach. And then, of course, there's a good win back opportunity, and there's a journey to sort of come back. So we aim it at new customers, and we call it a starter kit, and it's the very best way to get started with a product. You're getting a few extras. You're tempted into the subscription, and so we hope you fall in love with us, and
Right.
some customers do.
Right. And so you mentioned that, right? It's like the starter kit. It's everything that you need to have a really great first product experience because as we all know, well, I mean, maybe you should help educate listeners here on why is that so important? Like having that first product experience. And I guess maybe I should preface that with, do you find that a lot of people buying the product are new to adaptogens in general, or are they've tried others before? So I'm kind of curious too about that different experience because somebody's taken it, how they experience it versus somebody that has. But I'd love for you to unpack that first product experience a little bit more too.
Yeah. So there's many ways in which you can sort of bundle value, and you can do different sorts of free gifts, you can do discounts, but yeah, the sort of the sweet spot is something that's valued and enhances that first experience. So with some of the data and the digging that we found, we do a 2-week check-in with our customers and we check how they use the product. And we've found quite a big difference in customers that use the product right and product customers that use the product wrong. And we've sort of seen the right and wrong way by looking at how they make up the product, how they use it, and then we sort of look at their behavior from there. And we sort of found our model customers that are the highest value. They use the product most regularly, they sort of order it most often, and we look at how they use their product, and we're trying to sort of mimic their experience and make that the sort of universal experience, get as many customers to sort of follow the model experience. And yes, that very first cup, that very, very first experience is so important. I think for the most part, our customers are new to adaptogens, to mushroom coffee, and how you make it is really important. It can taste really earthy, really bitter, or it can taste really delicious. If you've had 1 or 2 cups and you're really struggling with the taste, it's really hard to get you back. And so that kind of first early impression, those that first experience really, really can set the tone. And what you do in your first 2 weeks, we found is the crucial time sort of coach you, and customers that use it right, enjoy the product, just survive a lot better than customers that use it the wrong way. So we do some onboarding and really get you how to make the first perfect cup is like the goal of the first week of comms that we'd send you. We give you a welcome booklet that comes with your order. We give you the products that sort of make that really easy for you to do, and we coach you on how to do that. And so that's our strategy, is to get customers to have the best first experience possible. In terms of segmenting customers by, are they new to adaptogens and mushrooms or are they not? I think we could do a better job at that. So we use no commerce to survey our customers right after purchase. And it's actually a really good moment because they've just checked out how you sort of present it. They're open to sharing a little bit more. They've just sort of invested in this product. They're already on the screen. We make it really seamless and really easy. You click right there. You don't have to click elsewhere. You don't have to open an email. So it's a really good opportunity for us to ask some questions. And I think new to mushrooms and adaptogens or some experience would be a good question to ask, and then sort of see how they differ. It's not something we ask now. We ask some other questions, but I like that idea. Well, should we be treating them differently? We don't know. Potentially, yes. Certainly a customer that's reactivating and coming back, we speak to them differently. But somebody who's tried a mushroom product before would be interesting to know whether we should treat them quite differently. But yeah, it's a really, really powerful tool. And even just pain point, we found asking pain point, and no, we've seen a really, really big difference between customers that came in on looking for focus and productivity, comparing with customers who came in with a gut health pain point. And with the same product, sort of more or less the same marketing, the behavior is really, really different. Just looking at what their struggles were when they found your product.
That's what I always. That's why when you talked about at the beginning about customer research, that's why what gets me so excited, because it's, you start selling a product that you think has one main usage, one main use, and then people think that it works for other things and they buy it, and everybody's different, and everybody has a different. Each customer type can have a different LTV, right? Like and it might be ones that you had no idea would be more valuable.
Yeah.
I just love how you were talking about listening to your customers about what makes the perfect like cup and like that
Yes.
first experience and building around that. If you don't mind, I'm just going to oversimplify what you said, and you can just tell me if I've either oversimplified too much or hit the nail on it. But it's like, hey, if you find that people that make a cup first thing in the morning, that they use a little bit of milk or a little bit of this or this added to it, they use the mixer and they make it this certain steps, that those people have a better. So it's like time of day and the way it's made has a stronger correlation with people that stay on the product as opposed to, say, a bunch of other random stuff. Is that kind of what you're talking about, is like looking at where okay, I love that.
Yeah, time of day, you've touched on it. Time of day, we found those that were drinking it first thing in the morning are most likely to form a habit and reorder. Using milk instead of water and having it hot instead of cold. So customers that drank it early in the morning had it hot and make sure that they were drinking it at least daily. In their first 2 weeks, retained way better, spit more, etc., etc. So those were sort of the three key things, and you've touched on the right things there. And so, yeah, we take that data and we build that into our coaching. We also check in with customers at the 2 week mark, and we measure what time are you drinking it? How have you made it? Any customers that are sort of
Interesting.
doing it wrong, we can then retarget them for coaching. So we're also trying to identify that behavior early on, who needs coaching to get it fixed. And so, yeah, getting customers to read our stuff, to read what we send and to complete our surveys, those are two challenges that we have. Yeah, we need to get them to open what we're sending, and we need to get them to sort of feedback to us, and so that we can coach them. So it relies on, it's a two-way relationship. We need the customer to engage back.
It's so interesting you said that though, because like I think most brands are, because I preach that quite a bit on a check-in, but we're often so scared that that's going to cause churn. Was that an internal discussion? Was that like a once you realize that how critical those first 2 weeks were, you realize that touch point? Because basically, if somebody's had a successful product experience within the first 2 weeks, you messaging them for feedback is not going to probably hurt the relationship. If they've had a bad product experience in the first 2 weeks, at touch points, like they're already thinking about canceling or how to get rid of it. So like it's kind of like you win if you win, and you've already lost, so you might as well get what info you had. Like I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that and how it's gone.
Yeah, yeah. We do holdouts. So yeah, well, the question is, to what extent should we speak to customers? sh- should you welcome customers? To what extent, and who is just ongoing learning? How do you identify which customers need comms and which should be left alone? It's an ongoing challenge of how to segment and identify them. But we have a holdout, so we know exactly what our comms are doing, and we just track them cohorted over time. And the result isn't even consistent. In some months, our comms can be a little bit more effective, and other months less effective.
Mm.
But exactly right. I sort of have the philosophy that, reminding your customers that you exist, then, when we're packing their order, they'll get an email saying, we're preparing your order. They have so many opportunities to cancel. We shouldn't be too scared to ask our customers for feedback out of fear of them, remembering that we exist, or remembering that they've bought from you, or sparking churn. I think that happens to some extent, and that would happen for any piece of comms that you send. So checking in with your customers has much more of an upside than a downside. Those few that drop out because you've asked them for a bit of feedback at the 2 week check-in are not really the customer that was going to become, that loyal customer. They were going to leave you soon anyway. So you do take a little bit of a hit there, but the important thing is to keep that holdout group and just know the impact of what you're sending and what it does. Some things are more hurtful than others, and some things are more helpful than others. So yeah, in general, yeah, keep testing. There isn't like a universal or stable result on that. We find that it's something that changes over time, changes with the quality of the audience. And so yeah, it's important to keep measuring. Yeah, so we're not afraid to ask customers how they find the product at the 2 week check-in. You're just asking how the product's gone. I think there's ways and means to do it in a way that's quite gentle and quite curious, that customers really appreciate.
No, I love that. I love that. Okay, so tell me a little bit more about how you're testing some of those communications. So after the 2 week touch point, like with billing reminders, like upsells, win backs, I'm kind of curious to hear some of the strategy of what you guys have been doing in the past and what you find is working for you now.
Yeah. So we used a tool called Zamo to start us off testing on a couple of touch points, with the key ones being billing reminders and win back. The really great part about Zamo is the interactivity that you can build into an email and removing friction around the actions that customers take around win back billing reminders. So for billing reminders, it might be adding a product to your order, delaying your order, switching flavors before your order arrives. So for very useful actions that customers can take within an email without having to log in, we use Skio, have to access their account and do those things within Skio. So the use case was really clear to us, removing the friction for these positive actions that customers can take. We want the subscription to be flexible. We want customers to get the product when they want it, in the flavor that they want it. And so we did some testing around that, and the tool works well. We just weren't able to get our audience to sort of offset the positive actions with some of the negative actions that a lot of brands struggle with around billing reminders. And so we realized that we needed to do a little bit more customer education, a little bit more analysis and segmentation to understand what is the content we need to say around billing reminders, what sort of the run up to a billing reminder that sort of allows for it to be a really positive experience. So we're still learning and doing some more analysis before we sort of bring Zamo back with all singing, all dancing features that it has, so that we could get it in front of the right customer in the right way. So Zamo has been really, really helpful in terms of understanding, creating holdout groups, understanding the impact, including adding revenue and sales that you get from your billing reminders versus negative actions.
Right.
Is a delay a negative action? It could be, or it couldn't be. I think for the most part, we see it. If it's instead of a cancellation, it's a positive action. If it's instead of an order, debatable there. But yeah, it allows you to sort of look at any negative effects versus positive effects in quite a nice, easy view. It's all synced up with Klaviyo, and so it's a really good tool for testing that kind of thing. Otherwise, without Zamo, we are able to get some of that analysis done, and really, it's just A/B testing, consistent A/B testing, which is reasonably easy to do in Klaviyo, and sort of just tagging them and monitoring them over time. The good thing with the billing reminder is you don't have to wait very long. It's quite a quick A/B test. It triggers a few days before, and if the cancellation is going to happen, it's going to happen very close to that email. And so that's the great thing, is you can test, one after the other, test lots of iterations to come up with the best messaging for something like a billing reminder, which is challenging. So
And I love that what you're saying. It's like we want to get back to understanding what kind of messaging and what kind of education or other things that are leading up to make the billing reminder an impactful touch point. Once you understand that, then it's a lot easier to figure out what you should be. Because just as a very simple example for anyone listening at home,
yeah,
it could be, hey, somebody that's loving the product, but maybe they're starting to get tired of the same flavor, then it makes sense to push a flavor swap, as opposed to maybe somebody who is loving it, just wants to stay on the same one. You want to push, say, an upgrade into like getting 3 bags every 3 months. But you have to understand some of the messaging that's going to work with that and what you need to do to counter potential like objections or friction points, or just leaning into like excitement and stuff like that. So
yeah.
I really love hearing that, because you are like in the process of figuring that out. I know that it's hard and it feels challenging. Wish it was something you could easily just, here's what works. But you have to be specific to your brand and your customer, like you've been talking about.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So what type of customer are they? Where are they in their journey? Is it kind of the very next? Is it your first recurring order? Maybe you alter that slightly. And so I think you've got to sort of adjust depending on where the customer is in their journey, and alongside of some of those other, variables like what they've bought and where they've come from. So yeah, it's a nuanced area, and yeah, something we're still learning, and yeah, and always keen to speak to other brands and sort of learn how they're doing it, and sort of how they're unlocking it, and basically using something that can be negative and turning that into something that's positive. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
that's what we're trying to do as well.
No, I totally hear you. We've
Yeah.
run some tests recently with clients, and if we can get the billing reminder to feel like we can, with holdout groups, we've seen it be similar in impact to not sending it.
Yeah.
If you can get to that point, then then all of the positive actions and upsells and skip actions that can be embedded into a billing reminder make a lot more sense. So I definitely understand that. And then, yeah, you brought up an interesting one, like delay is generally not a bad thing, but it's funny how we go from when we're starting with subscriptions about preventing a cancellation
Yeah.
to what does it take to enable a process like the order to actually go through, because that's actual revenue. So that's the even harder piece of it.
Yeah, exactly. So, in Skio, one of the most sort of popular and prominent actions a customer can do is skip. Skipping, missing out on order is really convenient, and something we've had to figure out is how prominent and how easy to sort of make that skipping. So, not to encourage a customer who was planning to make an order to skip, figuring out who to sort of show the right button to, who's at risk of churn and who's not. So where as you're logging in, you can have the skip button sort of available really, really early on, or you can embed it a little bit more deeply, sort of have the customer have to click through and have a little bit more high intent, potentially to cancel before you show them the skip. And I think that's a really interesting area that has a lot of impact on revenue, is how easy or difficult to make order skipping as soon as a customer logs on. Sort of deter them from cancellation, but not lead them to skipping if there was no intention to do that. And that is such a fine balance to strike. And when you're dealing with tens of thousands of subscriptions, these things really have, they matter. They have a lot.
So because you're talking about, oh, okay, our churn rate maybe goes from like we're going from 12% down to 10% because of this, but our captured revenue each month is the same, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a huge impact.
Yeah.
B, as we kind of wrap up, I'd love to ask, as you kind of said, a retention marker focused on subscriptions. Is there any one lesson you either wish you knew or something that you don't see enough brands doing or thinking about? Anything from a tip, insight, strategy in your career that you want to share with everybody listening home?
Yeah, I have sort of two core insights and some food for thought. Just from testing, experimenting, especially lately at SpaceGoods. So a couple of things top of mind. One of them is, so our biggest reason for churn is cost, and the instinct straight away is to sort of say, what if our base price, what if our subscriptions were just cheaper? Would that solve churn? How much could we reduce cancellation, especially through it's just too expensive, by making the subscription cheaper upfront, in the first place, the base price. And we ran an experiment, is a split test side by side. One subscription was 25% cheaper than the other, quite exactly at the same time, just a really clean split test. And we thought we'd see a very clear retention difference between the two groups, month 1, month 2, month 3, etc. And we just didn't. So yeah, the insight there for us was just decreasing the base price of your subscription price alone just doesn't impact retention, or just doesn't change the picture for retention. Customers will still cancel at a similar rate, saying that the product is too expensive. Almost didn't really matter what the product was priced at. I think a customer subscribes, they take on a price, they acclimatize to what that price
Right.
is. And so just whittling away your price or eroding away at your margins to make it cheaper just isn't that silver bullet. It just doesn't solve retention, at the way that you might expect, just purely looking at the volume of churn and the reasons for churn. It feels like that would be a quick fix for a business or a quick solve. And it just absolutely wasn't the case for us. And so sometimes you might sort of be leaving revenue on the table, just tempted and sort of competing on price. And I think you can go down a hole of discounting there as well, and just sort of playing on price. On the kind of flip side of that, so price is just sort of speaking to the wallet, right? So we tested something else a little bit on the other extreme, which was kind of speaking to the heart. So this was a test where it's exactly the same product, it's exactly the same price as our sort of standard, but this time we got you to set a goal at the start. So we got some buy-in, we ran a funnel, And effectively, it was some kind of emotional buy-in that you would get. You would set a goal, a vision for yourself, or something you'd want to achieve over the next 90 days. It fit quite well with our product being a sort of productivity and focus hack where it's very much about achievement. And so we focused on that kind of emotional benefit or that sense of achievement. And what happens if somebody sets their own goal at the start of their journey and they're almost holding themselves to account? Just asking our subscriber to set a goal of what they wanted to get out of their journey. That alone, just with the same product, is a similar journey, delivered a significantly higher, 20% plus improvement on month 2, month 3, and month 4 retention. Those customers were just a lot stickier. So, it was really, really fascinating. So playing around with something deep and important as price, we see it right at the top of our churn reasons, and sort of going the other way and doing something quite different and something a lot softer was a lot more effective on just that hardcore reorder rate that we're tracking and trying to optimize. So that was a really interesting learning for us. And so, we're spending a lot of time thinking about, onboarding and funnels and sort of taking customers through certain steps to sort of get that buy-in and that some level of commitment as they're making that purchase and trying to leverage that insight and scale that up.
Doesn't it feel so counterintuitive? You think we're just going to make things easier. Oh, it doesn't have an impact on retention. We're going to make things a little bit harder, but it involves this aspirational commitment. And oh, wow, we see people really resonate with that. Isn't that funny?
It is funny, right? Exactly. And so, sometimes your intuition, is totally wrong. And just making things easier in terms of price is not necessarily showcasing value. And I think value is ultimately, where businesses are going to live or die, isn't it? We can always fight on price, but it just does it. There's no loyalty.
Just think of
Like,
classic Apple versus Samsung. If you ask anybody that's an Apple user, why do they not use Samsung? It is not, they never mention the price. It's
no,
and they mention an affinity with the brand, a safety, some kind of emotional, some part of psychology or identity, right? And so Apple charges more. And so I think I want to thank you first of all for dropping such an incredible gem at the end, because when I market this podcast, I'm going to say you have to listen all the way through to the end. But realistically, like all seriousness would be, that was like an amazing point at like one, listening to your customers about running tests and about understanding that price, when people say that something's too expensive, it's not as very often an actual like, hey, I can't afford your product, so much as I'm not willing to spend money on your product because I don't think it's valuable. That is what people are really telling you. So what can you do to make the product valuable?
so well said. Exactly.
Well, you said it. I'm just recapping a little bit, but anyway. B, thank you so much for coming on the show. Incredible, great second interview. I can't wait to release this to everybody. But thank you again.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me back. And as always, just really, really good chatting with you. Thank you so much for what you do. I can't wait to see what you're putting out next. Thanks for sharing your knowledge with us, and find this podcast really, really valuable. So shout out to you again.
Well, thank you so much. I'd say you made me blush, but I have a very red complexion, so maybe it's hard to notice. But for everyone listening at home, thank you so much for tuning in and listening to our conversation. And until next week, this has been your dose of subscription prescription. That's it for today. Thank you for tuning in. Please subscribe so that you can get notified when new episodes come out each week on Tuesdays.